I stared at my phone screen, my face circled in red like a target, while my daughter-in-law asked her followers who they'd erase from our family. The comments poured in like poison, each laugh, each cruel agreement landing like a slap across my 63-year-old face. So I typed back the words that would change everything. The house you're living in isn't your husband's, it's mine, and I just voted to erase you from my property. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me where you're tuning in from. Now let me tell you how I got here. Sitting in my car outside what everyone thought was my son's house, holding the deed that proved otherwise. It started with what should have been a family celebration. My son, Ethan, he's 42, had just gotten a promotion at his accounting firm. His wife of 15 years, Brooke, decided it called for a family photo to showcase her triumph on social media. You know how it is these days. Nothing seems to exist unless it's posted for the world to see. "Eleanor, stand over there," Brooke directed, pointing me toward the far edge of our little group. Not Mom Eleanor, like she used to call me. Just Eleanor, said with that clipped tone she'd developed lately, like I was hired help instead of the woman who'd raised the man she married. I positioned myself where she wanted, watching as she arranged Ethan and their two teenagers, Grace and Tyler, in the center, the perfect nuclear family. I was clearly the add-on, the extra piece that didn't quite fit the aesthetic she wanted. She took dozens of photos, each time finding something to fix. "Ethan, tilt your head more. Grace, smile with your teeth. Tyler, please put your phone away for 5 seconds." But when Brooke glanced at me, she just sighed, like my very presence exhausted her. The photo she finally chose really was beautiful. I'll admit it. Ethan looked distinguished in his new suit. The kids looked like they'd stepped out of a magazine, and Brooke glowed with that particular satisfaction that comes from getting everything exactly right. Even I looked decent, standing a bit apart, but smiling genuinely at my family. What I didn't know was what she planned to do with that picture. 3 days later, my neighbor Linda knocked on my door, cheeks flushed with indignation. "Eleanor, honey, you need to see this." She thrust her phone at me, and there it was, our family photo. Only now my face was circled in thick red marker. The caption read, "Family game. If you could erase one person from this picture, who would you choose? I think you know my choice." My heart stopped. I scrolled through the comments, each one a fresh wound. Definitely the old lady. Why is she even there? Time for a nursing home. That family would be perfect without the extra baggage. And there, underneath, were Brooke's laughing emojis and heart reactions. Like my humiliation was a party she was hosting for strangers. As I sat there, the memory of buying that house 12 years earlier came rushing back. Ethan and Brooke had just married and were living in a cramped apartment, drowning in student loans and credit card debt. My husband Walter was still alive then. We'd just received a substantial inheritance from his mother's estate. "Mom, we're looking at houses," Ethan confided over a Sunday dinner. "But the market is insane. We can't qualify for anything decent." I watched Brooke that night, how she avoided eye contact whenever money came up, how her attention suddenly fixed on her phone when Ethan mentioned their finances. But I also saw how much my son loved her, how he lit up when she laughed, how protective he became if anyone criticized her. Walter and I discussed it for weeks. "We could help with a down payment," he suggested one evening while the news hummed in the background. "Or," I said, hearing an idea click into place, "we buy the house outright, let them live in it, and they pay us modest rent until they're in a better place to take over the mortgage." Walter studied me. He knew that look, the one I get when I'm working a puzzle in my head. "You're thinking we put it in your name only, as a safety net," Exactly. You know how marriages can be unpredictable nowadays. If something happened, at least Ethan would be protected. At the time, it felt wise, generous too. When we found the perfect place, a pretty colonial with 4 bedrooms and a big backyard for the grandkids we hoped would come, we put everything in my name. The deed, the insurance, the property taxes. Ethan and Brooke were ecstatic. They moved in like newlyweds beginning their dream life, and for a while, everything was perfect. They paid a modest rent, just enough to cover taxes and maintenance. Walter and I felt good giving our son such a solid foundation. But over time, Brooke started introducing me as Ethan's mother, who helped us with the house. Then, Ethan's mother, who gave us money for the house. Over the years, the story evolved until most folks believed Ethan had bought the house himself, with only a small assist from us. I never corrected anyone. Why would I? It wasn't about credit. It was about family. 5 years ago, Walter died. In my grief, I was even more generous. I stopped charging rent entirely. Your family, I told Ethan when he tried to insist. This is what family does. Now, sitting in my car, looking at that house with fresh eyes, I realized how thoroughly I'd been erased from our narrative. My phone chimed. More comments on Brooke's post. More strangers deciding I was expendable. Mixed in with the cruelty, a few voices of reason poked through. People calling out Brooke for being disrespectful. One comment stopped me cold. That's someone's mother. How would you feel if your daughter-in-law posted this about your mom? Brooke's response was swift and smug. Some mothers-in-law earn their place in the family. Others just expect it because they gave birth. I believe in earned respect, not automatic entitlement. Earned respect, automatic entitlement. I thought about Sunday dinners cooked, last-minute babysitting so they could have date nights, the emergency funds when Ethan's car died, and when Brooke needed money for her real estate license. I thought about the house, my house, where they'd lived rent-free for 5 years. What exactly did I have to do to earn my place? My phone rang. Ethan's name lit the screen. My heart lifted. Surely he was calling to defend me, to demand Brooke take that post down. "Mom," he began, tight and stressed. "We need to talk." "Yes, we do," I said, expecting we'd discuss the post. "Brooke showed me what you commented. That was completely inappropriate." The world tilted. "Inappropriate? Ethan, did you see what she posted?" She asked people which family member they'd erase and circled my face. "It was just a joke, Mom. You know how social media is. But claiming you own our house, that's crossing a line. Just a joke. My public shaming was a joke." "Ethan," I said slowly, "I do own your house. My name is on the deed. I bought it 12 years ago, remember?" A long pause. "That was different. You bought it for us. It's been our home for more than a decade." "Yes, it's been your home, in my house." "Mom, you can't be serious. We've put our whole lives into this place. We renovated the kitchen, redid the bathrooms, landscaped the yard. This is where my kids grew up." "With money I saved you by not charging rent," I pointed out. Silence. When he spoke again, his voice was colder than I'd ever heard it. "What exactly are you threatening to do?" The question hung between us. 24 hours earlier, I wouldn't have known. But 24 hours earlier, I hadn't been publicly humiliated by my own family. "I'm not threatening anything," I said evenly. "I'm clarifying facts. Your wife seems confused about who owns what." "You're being vindictive, Mom. I'm being accurate." After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my small apartment, the one I moved into after Walter died so Ethan's family could spread out in the big house. I downsized my life to make theirs bigger. This was my reward. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in 5 years. I drove to my house and used my key. Eleanor? Brooke's voice shot from the kitchen, sharp with surprise and an edge of fear. What are you doing here? I live here, I said simply, taking in the new paint, the furniture, the artwork. They'd made it there so thoroughly that it felt foreign, even though every inch was legally mine. Ethan appeared from the living room, face flushed. Mom, you can't just walk in anymore. This is our home. Actually, it's my home. You live in it. Brooke stepped closer to Ethan, a united front against the crazy old woman. This is ridiculous. You haven't lived here in 5 years. And I've owned it for 12. I pulled out my phone. Want me to show you the deed? It's all very clearly documented. Grace and Tyler hovered in the doorway, drawn by raised voices. They looked confused and uncomfortable, the way kids do when the adult world goes off kilter. Grandma Eleanor, Grace ventured, is everything okay? Before I could answer, Brooke turned to them. Go upstairs. The adults need to talk. The way she said, adults, made clear I'd been excluded from that category. I watched my grandkids retreat, probably to text friends about the weird drama downstairs. Look, Ethan said, lowering his voice. I get that you're upset about social media. Brooke probably went too far, but you can't use the house as a weapon. I'm not using anything as a weapon. I'm asserting my rights as the owner. Brooke crossed her arms. Fine. You want to play legal games? We've lived here for 12 years. We've improved the property. We have tenant rights and sweat equity. You can't just kick us out. I almost smiled at her confidence. Actually, as my lawyer explained this afternoon, since you've never paid rent and there's no lease, you're considered guests in my home. I can ask you to leave with 30 days' notice. The color drained from their faces. You called a lawyer? Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. I called Harold Patterson, the attorney who handled Walter's estate. Thorough man. Brooke's mask slipped, the sugary social persona cracking. You bitter old woman. You can't stand that we're happy, that we've built something beautiful here. What you've built, I said quietly, is a life on my foundation, and apparently you built it while mocking the woman who made it possible. Ethan looked between us, torn. Mom, please, let's calm down and figure this out. Brooke apologized for the post. Mom, let's talk about making this house thing official somehow. I was done being accommodating. The house thing has been official for 12 years, I said. What's new is I'm not pretending otherwise. The next morning, Harold's office felt like a sanctuary. He's 73, has been practicing law longer than some people have been alive. His quiet steadiness was exactly what I needed. Eleanor, he said, scanning the documents spread across his mahogany desk. You're on solid legal footing, but practically, this could get messy. How messy? He leaned back, studying me over his glasses. Your son and daughter-in-law have lived there 12 years. They've made improvements, established residency, built their lives. While they don't have legal ownership, they can argue equitable interests, compensation for improvements, time to relocate, maybe a right of first refusal if you decide to sell. I thought about the renovated kitchen, the finished basement, the deck Ethan built 2 summers ago, and what do I owe them for improving my property? Harold actually smiled for the first time since I'd sat down. Here's where it's interesting. Since they made those improvements without your written consent, and they haven't been paying rent or taxes, they have very little standing to demand compensation. So I can ask them to leave with proper notice. Yes. But Eleanor, is that really what you want? This will likely destroy your relationship with your son. I pictured Brooke's post, the laughing emojis, Ethan accusing me of being vindictive for stating facts. Maybe that relationship is already destroyed, I said quietly. He pulled a fresh legal pad. Tell me what you want to accomplish. For the next hour, we laid out options: evict them, sell the house and force a move, formalize a lease at market rent, transfer ownership to Ethan with or without compensation. There's one more thing, Harold said, as our meeting wound down. I was reviewing Walter's estate files for another matter and noticed something. When he inherited from his mother 12 years ago, it wasn't just cash. He slid me a thicker file. There's a trust fund established for your son, with you as administrator. It's been compounding for 12 years. My breath caught. How much? As of last month, just over $400,000. I stared at the number. Ethan had a trust fund, significant and quietly growing, with me authorizing reinvestment automatically. Walter never told him. The trust documents say it was to be revealed when Ethan turns 45 or upon your death, whichever came first. He turns 43 next month. A plan began to take shape, not revenge, something quieter, stronger, something that would teach what needed teaching about assumptions and entitlement. Harold, I said, I think I know exactly what I want to do. 3 days later, I was ready. I'd had time to think, to plan, and to discover just how deep Brooke's manipulation ran. I decided to review my finances more carefully. Walter had handled most investments, and after he died, I let them run on autopilot. But Harold's revelation about the trust fund made me wonder what else I'd missed. What I found made my blood run cold. For 2 years, someone had been making small, regular charges to my credit card. Nothing huge, nothing to trigger alerts. $50 here, $30 there. A subscription service. A few online purchases. App downloads. Different merchants. Same source when traced back. Brooke's phone. Linda helped me piece the timeline together over coffee at my tiny kitchen table, bank statements spread out like a crime board. I always wondered how Brooke could afford those handbags, she said. Ethan's a good accountant, but those purses cost more than my car payment. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. Brooke had been presenting herself online as a successful real estate agent, but according to the license lookup, she'd closed 3 deals in 2 years. Her income was practically nothing. Yet she posted spa days, shopping sprees, pricey dinners. All funded, I now realized, by my credit card. I did the math. Over $8,000 in unauthorized charges. Small enough to fly under the radar, large enough to fund the lifestyle she flaunted. The same online presence where she'd humiliated me for sport. My phone rang as I photographed the evidence. Brooke's name flashed on the screen. Eleanor, we need to talk, she said, less confident now. Yes, we do. Ethan and I have been discussing the house. We want to make this right. We're prepared to offer you fair market rent, starting immediately. How generous, I said, eyeing the spread of statements. And how exactly do you plan to pay that rent? A beat. What do you mean? I mean, according to the commission database, you've sold 3 houses in 2 years, maybe $15,000 in commissions before taxes. Ethan makes $60 at the firm, on $90 total gross income. How have you been funding your lifestyle? Another pause. Longer. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying. I'm stating facts. For instance, my credit card was charged about $8,000 over the past 2 years for purchases I didn't make. Silence stretched so long I thought the call dropped. Brooke, are you there? Those charges, she finally whispered. I can explain. I'm sure you can, just like you could explain why it was appropriate to publicly humiliate the woman whose credit card you've been stealing. I never meant to. You never meant to get caught, I said. There's a difference. When I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, the calm rush of taking back control. Tomorrow I'd put Harold's plan into motion. Tonight, I would sleep better than I had since Walter died. The game was changing, and for the first time in a long time, I was setting the rules. The next morning brought an unexpected ally. Grace, my 17-year-old granddaughter, showed up at my apartment, eyes rimmed red, but jaw set with a determination that reminded me of myself at her age. "Grandma Eleanor, I need to tell you something," she said, sliding into a kitchen chair like someone twice her age. I poured her coffee and felt a tug of guilt for all the times I'd been the accommodating grandmother instead of the clear-eyed one. "What's on your mind, sweetheart?" "Mom's been lying about a lot of things." Grace's voice quivered. "I heard her on the phone with Aunt Nicole last night about the credit card. She wasn't sorry, Grandma. She was mad that you found out." My heart ached for this child, caught between a mother's selfishness and her own sense of right and wrong. "What else did you hear?" Grace pulled out her phone, fingers trembling. She's been planning this for months. She showed me texts between Brooke and Nicole about finally getting the old lady out of the picture and claiming what's rightfully ours, about how Ethan was too soft and needed to grow a backbone with his mother. The most damning text was from 3 weeks ago. "Posted the perfect thing today. Time to show Eleanor exactly where she stands in this family. Ethan will thank me later when we're happier without her constant interference." So the joke wasn't a joke at all. It was a calculated strike, meant to humiliate me into silence. "There's more," Grace said, scrolling. "She's been telling people you were secretly charging us rent this whole time, and you're trying to kick us out because you need money. She's making you sound desperate and greedy." I studied Grace's earnest face and saw Walter's honesty, Ethan's gentle nature, and something steelier, something that wouldn't be bullied. "Whatever happens between your mother and me," I said softly, "it doesn't change how I feel about you and Tyler." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I know, Grandma, but what Mom did was wrong." That afternoon, Harold called with a gut punch. "Eleanor, we have a problem. Ethan filed papers this morning claiming adverse possession." "What does that mean?" "He's arguing that because they've lived there openly for 12 years, maintained the property, and you allowed it without a formal lease, they have legal claim through continuous occupation." I felt the floor shift. Can they do that? They can try. In some states, if someone occupies a property openly for a certain number of years, while the owner takes no action, they can claim ownership. The good news? In our state, it's 20 years, not 12. Relief washed through me, then anger. My son was trying to steal my house through a legal technicality. "There's something else," Harold added. "They hired Valerie Stevens as their attorney. She's expensive. On Ethan's salary, there's no way they can afford her. Then how are they paying her? That's what we need to find out. If they used fraudulently obtained credit, we have them." That evening, a knock at my apartment door. Ethan stood there, and for a heartbeat I saw the little boy who once brought me dandelions and called them flowers. "Mom, we need to end this madness," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "I agree," I said, stepping aside. "The madness of your wife stealing my credit card, the madness of you trying to take my house through adverse possession, the madness of publicly humiliating the woman who gave you everything." He flinched at each word. "It doesn't have to be like this. We can work something out." "You mean like the way we worked out you living rent-free for 5 years?" I asked. "That was different. You offered. And you repaid my generosity by letting your wife commit fraud and then trying to steal my property with legal manipulation." He sagged into my armchair, looking older than 42. "She said it was the only way to protect our family, that you were getting unstable and might take the house for no reason. So the solution was to humiliate me publicly and then actually try to take the house? When you say it like that, it sounds crazy. It is crazy, Ethan. Your wife has convinced you I'm the problem while she's been stealing from me for 2 years. Doubt flickered across his face. Then his phone buzzed. He read a text, expression hardening. Brooke says you've been spreading lies to Grace, trying to turn the kids against their mother. I haven't said a word to Grace about any of this, but she's not blind. Ethan stood abruptly. Here's the deal. We'll pay you $2,000 a month in rent, starting now. That's fair market. In return, you drop the nonsense about credit card fraud. And if I don't accept your generous offer, I asked, then we'll see you in court. Valerie thinks we have a strong adverse possession case. And Mom? She's prepared to argue you're not competent to manage property anymore. So that was the play. They were going to try to have me declared mentally incompetent. Ethan, I said quietly, do you remember when you were 8 and you broke Mrs. Whitaker's window with a baseball? He blinked, thrown. Yeah. You came home crying, terrified. Do you remember what I told you? You said breaking the window was an accident, but lying about it would be a choice. And what did we do? We went over. I apologized. I offered to pay with my allowance. You learned that taking responsibility is what makes you a good man, I said. What you're doing now isn't an accident. It's a choice. When he left, the apartment felt impossibly still. I wondered when that little boy had lost his clarity about right and wrong. The next call came from Tyler, my 15-year-old grandson, while his parents were at their lawyer's office. Grandma, I found something in Mom's office. Can you come get me? 20 minutes later, I was parked outside the house I still legally owned, watching Tyler hustle down the driveway with a manila folder hugged to his chest. What is it? I asked as he climbed in. Mom's been keeping records, everything. He opened the folder, meticulously organized documents, bank statements, credit card applications, printouts of my social media accounts. I stared, stunned. Brooke had been systematically documenting my life, my finances, my online activity. Notes in her handwriting analyzed my spending, my social circles, even my health gleaned from public posts about doctor visits. Tyler, where did you find this? In her desk, the folders labeled E. Miller Strategy. He swallowed. There's more. She's been applying for credit cards using your information. My blood ran cold as he pulled copies of applications. My name and social security number, but Brooke's email and phone. How many? 6, I found. And look at this. He held up a page loaded with calculations. She planned to max them all and then claim identity theft when the bills came due. The scope took my breath away. This wasn't borrowing a card. This was a full identity theft scheme designed to tank my credit and bankroll her life. There's something else, Tyler added, voice small. She's been recording your calls. He showed me a call recording app, storing audio files from every conversation I'd had with Ethan for 6 months in Brooke's cloud. She told Dad that if you caused trouble, she'd have evidence you were losing your memory. The audacity almost impressed me. Almost. Send me copies of everything, I said. Already did, Tyler replied, showing his phone. I took pictures of every page. I'm sorry, Grandma. Mom's been different, mean, even to me and Grace. I squeezed his hand. This isn't your fault. You've been incredibly brave. That evening I called Harold with the new evidence. His reaction was immediate. Eleanor, this is serious federal crime territory. Identity theft, wire fraud, conspiracy. Brooke could be looking at years in prison. What about Ethan? Did he know? We'll have to determine that. But there's more. I ran checks after we spoke. Valerie's retainer alone is $50,000. Where did they get $50,000? That's what worries me. If they used fraudulent credit to fund a case aimed at stealing your property, that's another felony. By then I realized Brooke had made a fatal mistake. In her eagerness to destroy me, she documented her own crimes so thoroughly she left no room to deny anything. The bombshell landed the next morning in Harold's office, delivered by a forensic accountant named Denise Wells, sharp-eyed, relentless. "Mrs. Miller," she said, spreading documents across the conference table, "your son and daughter-in-law have been busier than we thought." She slid over a thick folder. 6 months ago, they opened Miller Property Management, LLC. On paper, it looks legitimate. In reality, it's been used to funnel money from multiple sources. "What kind of sources?" I asked. "Fraudulent loans to start. They've been using your property as collateral without your knowledge. The house you own free and clear? They've borrowed against it 3 times in the past year." My head swam. How is that even possible? "Because Ethan had access to the deed through family papers Walter kept," Harold said grimly. "He's been forging your signature on loan applications." Denise continued, "They've borrowed a total of $230,000 against your house. The money's been funneled through the LLC to pay Valerie's retainer, fund their lifestyle, and, most interesting, purchase another property." "Another property?" "A vacation condo in Florida, bought 8 months ago for $180,000 cash. While I was living modestly in my little apartment, they were using my house as an ATM to buy a secret getaway." Denise slid another packet forward. "There's more. The trust fund you mentioned. Someone's been making unauthorized withdrawals, $40,000 in the last year, using Ethan's power of attorney information." "I never gave Ethan power of attorney over finances." "No," Harold said. "But you did grant him medical power of attorney for last year's surgery. Someone used that limited authority to pry into financial accounts." Silence settled as the betrayal landed in full. My son, the boy I'd raised to tell the truth, had been defrauding me for over a year. "What are my options?" I asked finally. Harold and Denise exchanged a look. "We can file criminal charges immediately," Harold said. "Bank fraud, identity theft, forgery, elder abuse. The evidence is overwhelming." "Or," I could feel another option hanging there. "Or we confront them," Denise said. "Present the evidence. See if they'll make full restitution and cooperate in unwinding the fraud." I thought of Ethan threatening to have me declared incompetent. I thought of Brooke's cruel post, her meticulous strategy folder. "How long would they serve if we press charges?" I asked. "Ethan could get 5 to 7 years, Denise said. "Given Brooke's planning and initiation, she could face 10 to 15. I closed my eyes and pictured Grace and Tyler, what it would mean to have both parents in federal prison. But I also pictured the condo, the forged signatures, the recorded calls. "I want to see them," I said finally. "Both of them. Here, tomorrow morning." "Eleanor," Harold warned, "once we reveal what we know, there's no going back." "There's already no going back," I said. "That line was crossed the moment they chose to steal from me." Part 2. They walked into Harold's office the next morning like they were attending a business meeting. Ethan in his best suit, Brooke in a designer dress I now realized I'd probably paid for without knowing it. "I hope this means you've come to your senses about the house," Brooke said as she sat, wearing that well-practiced confidence like armor. "Oh, I've come to my senses," I replied, watching Harold place the first packet on the table. Ethan went pale when he saw the bank loan applications with my forged signature. Brooke held on to her composure for about 10 seconds, until Harold slid over the credit card applications with my stolen information. This is all a misunderstanding, Ethan said weakly. Is it? I asked. Explain how you accidentally signed my name on 3 loan applications using my house as collateral. Brooke switched to attack mode. You're a sick, jealous old woman trying to destroy your own family. We've done nothing but love and support you. By stealing $400,000 from me, I said. The number hung in the room like a bomb. Denise had tallied it. Fraudulent loans, stolen trust withdrawals, credit card fraud, the cash purchase of a Florida condo. That's not what happened, Ethan protested, but his voice lacked conviction. Then tell me what did happen, I said, steady. Tell me how you accidentally opened a business using my property as collateral. Tell me how you accidentally bought a condo with money borrowed against my house. We needed to protect ourselves, Brooke burst out. You're getting old, making bad decisions. Someone had to think about the future. So you stole my future to protect your, I said. Harold cleared his throat. Mr. and Mrs. Miller, you need to understand the gravity here. We have evidence of bank fraud, identity theft, elder abuse, and conspiracy. These are federal crimes with serious sentences. Ethan's composure cracked. Mom, please. I never meant for it to go this far. Brooke said it was temporary, that we'd pay everything back once the business got going. What business? I asked. The fake property management company you used to launder stolen money? It's not fake, he said. We were going to make it real. I looked at my son, really looked, searching for the honest boy who'd once stood on a porch and apologized for breaking Mrs. Whitaker's window. Ethan, do you remember what I taught you about responsibility? This is different, he muttered. No, I said. It's exactly the same. You broke something. Now you decide whether to tell the truth and fix it, or keep lying and make it worse. Brooke leaned forward, mean and unmasked. You self-righteous. You think you're perfect, but you're just a lonely old woman who can't stand that her son has his own life. I am a lonely old woman, I said evenly. A lonely old woman who owns a house you've been stealing against, and one who won't live with the knowledge that she betrayed her own family. Harold placed the final document on the table. Mrs. Miller has prepared an offer. Full restitution of all stolen funds, immediate vacating of the house, dissolution of the fraudulent business, cooperation in unwinding every illegal transaction. In exchange, she won't file criminal charges. And if we refuse? Ethan asked. We file this afternoon, Harold said. You'll likely be arrested by the weekend. Ethan looked at Brooke, then at me. How long do we have to decide? Until 5 o'clock, Harold said. After they left, I sat in Harold's office feeling strangely empty. Did I do the right thing? I asked. You gave them a choice, he said gently. The same kind you gave Ethan when he broke that window 35 years ago. At 4:30, my phone rang. Ethan's voice was hollow. We accept your terms, Mom. We'll sign whatever you need. 3 weeks later, I stood in the kitchen of my house, making coffee in a space that felt familiar and foreign at once. Ethan and Brooke had moved out the previous weekend, taking only their personal belongings. The Florida condo had been sold. The fraudulent loans were paid off. The trust fund restored. Grace knocked on the back door, a small box of forgotten things in her arms. How are you doing, Grandma? I'm good, sweetheart. How are you and Tyler adjusting to the apartment? She shrugged. It's smaller, but it's honest. She hesitated. Dad's been different since everything came out. More like his old self, you know. I did know. Sometimes you have to lose everything to remember who you are. Will you come for Sunday dinner? I asked. Grace smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her in months. Only if you make your famous pot roast. After she left, I walked through the rooms, seeing them with new eyes. The house was mine again. But more than that, it was clean, free of lies, manipulation, pretense. I opened windows and let the air move through like a blessing. That evening, I settled onto the front porch with a cup of tea and watched the sunset paint the sky in gold and purple. My phone buzzed with a social media memory from 4 years ago. Walter and me on this same porch, celebrating 40 years of marriage. He was smiling at the camera. I was looking at him, face soft with love and contentment. I shared the photo with a simple caption. Sometimes you have to fight for what matters most. Peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of justice. Within an hour, there were dozens of likes and comments, neighbors, old friends, even strangers offering support and sharing their own stories of family betrayal and recovery. But the comment that mattered most came from Grace. Love you, Grandma. Thank you for teaching us that integrity isn't negotiable. I put my phone aside and sat in the gathering dark of my own porch, in my own home, surrounded by the peace that comes from standing up for what's right. The house was quiet, but it wasn't empty. It was full of truth, and truth, I've learned, is the most comfortable thing to live with. If you've ever been through something like this, you're not alone. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this.